Folks, hello and welcome to Tavern Chat. I'm your host, your bartender in the OSR, Eric Tankar. And earlier tonight, we were doing the Tankar's Tavern Chat hangout over in the Discord server. And one of the things that came up is we started talking about the Dungeoneer Survival Guide, the Wilderness Survival Guide for AD&D 1E. And what was strange is that I realized when we brought this topic up, and I think I actually might have brought it up, is that this is something that the moment I didn't have to play with these rules, I stopped playing with them. Now, we have the OSR, right? And I've never seen anybody try to retro clone the survival guides, the rules in the survival guides, to bring them back in any way, shape, or form. It's not like they look back fondly and people go, yeah, and all the Dungeoneer survival guides changed the way I played gaming forever. And actually, in many ways, it probably did. But I don't think it changed the ways in a positive manner, right? I mean, that's important, right? Like when you're adding stuff to your game, and this was an add on to AD&D, you expect it to be something that's better for it, right? AD&D, what do we have there? We got the player's handbook, the DMG, monster manual. Uh, we got what DD's gods and demigods, the DDM. In any case, we got the God book, which is what allows you to kick ass on other godly beings, right? It was like the monster manual for gods. My players like to look at it that way. I want to get Thor's hammer. Let me go kill Thor. We got the Fiend Folio. Okay. We got the monster manual too. We got Unearthed Arcana. Now, Unearthed Arcana was interesting because it gave us weapon specializations. It gave us the Cavalier class, the Barbarian class, the Acrobat split off of the Thief. Gave us new races to choose from. In my opinion, it gave us a viable alternative to the magic user. It made the illusionist a bit more power punched, right? And we can have conversations, I'm sure, on one of the live streams about Unearthed Arcana, yay or nay, was it good for the game or bad for the game? But for 1E, we don't usually talk about the Dungeoneer Survival Guide and the Wilderness Survival Guide. And I got the Dungeoneer Survival Guide on the screen here. And why don't we talk about it? Is it because there was no real impact? There was an impact, okay? Before the survival guides, you created your character, and maybe if your DM was being generous, you could roll. Give me a percentile roll. All right. Let's see what your secondary skill is. Your secondary skill is husbandry. Yeah, you know how to take care of animals. Uh, Livestock. Well, how does that convert to in game? Maybe you knew how to like upkeep the horses, the mules. All right. Fletcher. Well, you can make your bow. That was useful, right? You make your own arrows. Maintain your bow. Armor or weaponsmith. All right, I can maintain my armor. I got this basic skill. You always wanted to have somebody who had like a jeweler skill or something like that, because he was like, oh, if you have a jeweler skill, you can always appraise items. But then we got the Dungeoneer Survival Guide, and all of a sudden, certain assumptions went out the window. And whether the book intended it or not is inconsequential, almost universal. I'm not going to make it an absolute because absolutisms are generally going to be wrong because they're absolute. But when I would talk to other players, whether they were in New York or the Poconos where I'd spend my summers, or maybe at a convention, at college, you would talk about the survival guides. And universally, it was, and I'm saying we didn't know any better, right? Oh, it's great because it gives me rules on what I can do. Now, before this, before the non weapon proficiencies were introduced, can you swim? Sure, you can swim. Oh shit, Lion. Your strength is 7, your dex is 6. All right, well maybe you can dog paddle. Yeah, the DM made these rulings, right, based upon your abilities, but the assumption was, yeah, you can swim. Can I ride a horse? Well, if you are a fighter, paladin, ranger, yeah, you can ride a horse and maybe a war horse, right? The assumption is your class, you had that built in, that was part of your training. You're a magic user, you can ride a riding horse. You're not going to ride a horse into battle. No, these were assumptions that you made. But now you got the Dungeoneer Survival Guide. Those assumptions were invalidated, right? Now you had rules for all this stuff. And sure, the assumption should be, well, if as long as it's not an extraordinary circumstance, you don't need to roll. The reality is, on a game that is based on rolling every round in combat, rolling your saving throws, rolling for random encounters, if you played with certain rules, random weather, finding traps, you rolled for everything. The instinct was, oh, you want to forge that river. Well, okay, you're on your horseback. Give me a riding check. Now, before it would have been like, all right, it's too deep for you to safely do it. What are you going to do to make it easier? Oh, all right. Well, we'll send one person ahead with a rope, and we can use the rope as a guide for the riders and horses. Makes sense, right? Once you gave people skills, oh, I got to roll a 13 or better on my riding check, and they stopped thinking out of the box. You put them into a box once you put these skills on them. There's a reason why we look at old school gaming, right? And are there any really truly popular AD&D second edition rule sets? Golden Glory is out there. I don't see it being played by people. Right? Adventures Dark and Deep is a what if second edition rule set. It's very well done, very tight, but I don't see it having a big carry on. What are the rules people talk about? Old school essentials, right? Swords of Wizardry, Labyrinth Lord, Osric. Nobody is going back to these days, these times, and saying, "Oh, I got to make sure we have non-weapon proficiencies for these classes," because it wasn't needed. In retrospect, we can look back and say that, but at the time, it was the new shiny, and the new shiny is something that you took, and you took that square peg in a round hole, and you took that DM hammer, and you fucking whacked it into place, and it changed the game. And I don't think it changed it for the better. And again, why do I say that? Because if it changed it for the better, we'd be running these rules with our old school games, right? With our OSR games, right? Our Renaissance game. We don't. The retro clones don't. This is not something that people are looking to emulate. They are looking to step away from. The cover's cool, but what makes this a Dungeoneer survival guide and not like a mountaineering survival guide? I don't know. The artwork looks more like he's climbing the side of a mountain. Doesn't look like a dungeon to me, but hey, is what it is. But again, I find it interesting. Dungeoneer survival guide, the Wilderness survival guide, we never, ever see them in use today. Yes, we can go on to 2E and 3, but there's a reason I think that for the most part, yes, 2E can be old school, but I think we kind of stopped at Unearthed Arcana, right? That's kind of where that line is, and even some people won't even go to that line. They look for a more pure line of AD&D because the more you added to it, the more the chassis started to shake, and the more it started to fit properly. My humble opinion. I could be wrong. I freely admit that. I'd like to hear your opinions, please. Drop them in the comments. I'd love to read them. Folks, we are still in the midst of the world of the pandemic. I know I'm going to upset some people when I say this because I don't care. Whether you're masked or not wearing a mask, mask mandates in the Northeast apparently are going away. I think New York State did away with it today as a state mandate. I don't care whether you're vaxxed or unvaxxed because I'm vaxxed, right? That's what was important to me. I got vaxxed. I got boosted. I got COVID. But I took my precautions. That was my responsibility. For me. You do you. That's whatever. I mean, I strongly suggest that if you haven't gotten vaccinated, you talk to a medical professional that knows your history and knows your comorbidities and whatever, and listen to their advice and be guided by such, but it doesn't affect me. Be safe. Be well. God bless. Roll those dice. And God willing, I'll be back again tomorrow with Glenn Hallstrom, the Old Man Grognard, at 8 p.m. Friday night. And Saturday, I believe, 8 p.m., Rach and I will return with another Gamer's Health. Fun times. All right, folks. On that note, I will catch you all later. Thank you so much.